Most people don't fail because they're weak. Absolutely not. They fail because they end up walking the wrong path, step after step, day after day, and they don't even realize it until it's far too late. And the terrifying part? You won't even feel it happening. That's exactly what makes it so dangerously seductive. The world doesn't punish you the moment you take a wrong turn. It doesn't flash a warning sign, doesn't shout, "Stop," or send you an alert. It lets you get comfortable. It lets you feel like everything is fine. It lets you wake up every morning, go through your routine, breathe in that false sense of progress, and believe you're moving forward. While quietly, slowly, it steers you toward a life overflowing with regret. One wrong decision won't destroy you, but one wrong direction, repeated every single day, compounded every single week, builds into something much worse than failure. It becomes a life you never truly chose, a version of yourself you never wanted to become. And by the time most people finally see it, the years are gone, the opportunities are gone, the energy and fire and belief that things could have been different, all of it burned out. Not by some spectacular disaster, but by thousands of small, quiet steps in the wrong direction. This message is a warning, not a motivational speech, not a feel-good moment, a real warning before the damage becomes permanent. Because if you're watching this right now, guess what? There's still time. So let me ask you something real. When you think about the life you want, the success, the respect, the control over your own future, what do you honestly believe it takes to get there? Most people immediately say hard work, dedication, consistency, and I'm not here to tell you they don't matter. They absolutely do. But here's what nobody says out loud. Hard work without strategy doesn't build power. It builds exhaustion. You can grind every day, outwork everyone, sacrifice sleep, comfort, your social life, and still end up exactly where you started, or worse, in a life you never wanted. Because effort without direction is just noise, movement without progress. The real danger isn't laziness. Most people aren't lazy at all. The real danger is invisible. It's the wrong alliances you never questioned, the emotional decisions you made in moments of weakness, the blind trust you gave to people who never deserved it, the approval you kept chasing from people who didn't care about your future. These are the forces that take a good, hard-working person and quietly push them off course. And when they finally look up, years have passed. This is exactly what Niccolo Machiavelli understood better than almost anyone. People hear his name and think manipulation or dirty politics, but that's such a shallow reading. What he really understood, with sharp, almost painful clarity, was human nature. He saw how people truly behave, how power is lost, how good intentions turn into deadly vulnerabilities, how the naive and approval-seeking always end up serving someone else's agenda. His wisdom wasn't for villains. It was for the aware, for the ones who refuse to be used, for the ones who choose to see the world clearly and make decisions with open eyes. And now I'm going to give you 7 strategic corrections drawn from that philosophy, 7 ways to recognize the wrong path before it costs you your future. If you apply even half of what you learn, you'll start to move differently, think differently, and protect yourself from the quiet destruction most people never see coming. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose awareness. Let's get into it. Number 1, question every path before you commit. Here's a question almost no one stops to ask. Why am I doing this? Not the surface answer, not because it pays well, or because everyone else is doing it, or because my parents said so. The real answer. Why are you on the path you're on right now? Most people never choose their path. They inherit it, absorb it, follow the trend, follow the crowd, follow the advice of someone who meant well but never understood their life. Then they spend years building something they never actually wanted. Machiavelli warned us about this with brutal accuracy. Most people are reactive. They don't lead their life. They respond to expectations and pressure. And when you're reactive, you're not walking your path. You're walking someone else's. Even worse, you become useful to the goals of others. The corporate climber trapped on a ladder they never wanted. The entrepreneur who built a business that looked good on paper but meant nothing inside. The person who chose a relationship or lifestyle because it looked right from the outside but felt empty within. Machiavelli called them followers without intention. And followers without intention are always controlled by those who do have intention. So the first correction, question every path aggressively, not once, relentlessly. Where does this road lead in 5 years? 10? Who benefits if you choose it? Because sometimes the path being handed to you was designed to serve the one handing it, not you. And while most advisors mean well, sincere people can still be wrong. Following wrong advice blindly is as dangerous as following bad advice intentionally. Independent thinking isn't arrogance, it's survival. Strategy begins with thinking for yourself, and thinking for yourself begins with a simple habit. Ask why before saying yes. Because a life built on unquestioned choices belongs to someone else, and you deserve better than that. Drop this affirmation. I think before committing. This one is going to hit some of you harder than you expect, maybe harder than you're ready for, because most people will never admit just how much of their life is secretly being run by one invisible force. The desperate, quiet, relentless need to be liked. Think about the last time you made a real decision, not what to eat for lunch, not something trivial, but a decision that actually mattered. How much of that choice came from what you wanted versus what you thought others would approve of? How often do you silence your real opinion because you're afraid of conflict? How often do you nod along when you know you disagree, swallow your truth when you should speak, or completely change your direction just because someone raised an eyebrow at your plans? If that question makes you even slightly uncomfortable, good, pay attention, because that discomfort is pointing at something painfully real. The desire to be liked is one of the greatest destroyers of personal power ever identified, and Niccolò Machiavelli saw it with stunning clarity. He observed that rulers, leaders, and everyday individuals who shaped their decisions around other people's approval always ended up fragile, vulnerable, and easy to sway, because every single time they put someone else's opinion above their own judgment, they handed away a tiny piece of their power. And piece by piece, decision by decision, approval seeking turns you into something dangerous, predictable, and predictable people are controllable. The moment those around you, colleagues, friends, even family, realize you adjust your behavior based on their reactions, you stop being the authority in your own life. You become manageable, easy to steer. All someone has to do is show mild disappointment, pull back their attention, or give you a disapproving look, and suddenly you're scrambling to change course. That isn't freedom. That's a leash disguised as connection. But let's be clear. This isn't about becoming cold or disconnected. That's not the point at all. Machiavelli emphasized the difference between respect and popularity, and wow, does that difference matter. Popularity is fragile, shifting with every mood, demanding constant maintenance. It forces you to perform tiny versions of yourself depending on who's watching. And the worst part? Approval gained through compromise never feels real. You know deep down you earned it by shrinking yourself. Respect, though, real respect is solid. It's earned through consistency, directness, conviction. People don't respect someone who agrees with everything. They may enjoy that person temporarily, but long-term they stop taking them seriously and start using their need for approval as leverage. The shift that changes everything is simple. Stop making decisions based on what's acceptable and start making them based on what's correct for your goals, your values, your life. When you stop needing approval, you become harder to manipulate, harder to pressure. Conversations shift. People treat you differently, not because you turned harsh, but because you're finally standing in conviction. And conviction is magnetic even when people disagree. If your choices are driven by other people's opinions, you're already off course. You're not building your life. You're performing for an audience that has no stake in your future. Power comes from respect, and respect starts with respecting yourself enough to make your own decisions without applause. Number 3, study people before you trust them. The wrong allies can destroy you faster than any mistake you make alone. The wrong partner, the wrong friend, the wrong confidant can cost you years, sometimes decades, sometimes opportunities that never return. This isn't paranoia, it's honesty. The biggest vulnerability most people carry isn't lack of skill or ambition, it's trust given too quickly. Machiavelli observed people in power, watching alliances, betrayals, downfalls caused not by enemies but by so-called friends. And he reached a conclusion many people still avoid. Human nature is consistent. Regardless of warm words or charming moments, people are driven by ambition, envy, and self-interest. This isn't cynicism, it's clarity. When you understand this, you stop being shocked when someone acts in their own favor, even at your expense. The mistake most people make is trusting words, warm conversations, promises, emotional moments. But words are easy. Loyalty expressed when loyalty costs nothing means nothing. Study behavior instead. Consistent behavior over time. How do they act when there's nothing to gain? How do they speak about others behind closed doors? When they're wrong, do they take responsibility or deflect? When you struggle, do they show up or disappear until it's convenient again? Real trust requires time, pressure, observation. People worth trusting won't be offended by this. They'll prove themselves without you asking. Your inner circle shapes everything. Your thinking, confidence, opportunities, blind spots. If the wrong people are inside that circle, the damage compounds in ways you won't see until it's too late. So be selective, be patient, be observant, and don't let loneliness or excitement make you skip the only step that reveals who someone truly is. Time and behavior, those two forces will reveal everything. Distance protects your future in ways you won't fully understand until you look back years from now. Choose your inner circle like your life depends on it, because in so many ways it truly does. And right now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Actions reveal character. Number 4, control your emotions before they take the wheel and steer your entire direction without your permission. Let's talk about the decisions that hurt the most. Not the careless decisions you made when you simply didn't know better. Not the ones where you lacked information. The ones that sting the deepest are always the decisions you made when you were angry or afraid or so wildly excited that your judgment practically ran out of the room. Almost every major regret in someone's life can be traced back to a choice made in a heightened emotional state. Think about it. The relationship you stayed in far too long because fear whispered endless what-ifs every time you got close to leaving. The deal you abandoned in a burst of anger only to spend years wishing you'd held on. The opportunity you leapt into without a second thought because the excitement made everything feel obvious and perfect until it wasn't. Emotions are powerful, and they are not the enemy. They provide valuable signals. The danger begins the moment emotions start making the decisions. Because emotions push you to react fast, not think clearly. They push for immediate response, not long-term strategy. Anger narrows your world down to the moment, making the immediate feel far more important than any consequence. Anger shouts, "Don't react now. Deal with the fallout later." And oh, there is almost always fallout. Fear pulls you backward when you should be pushing forward. It makes you cling to things you should release. Fear disguises avoidance as caution and has the audacity to call it wisdom when it's actually paralysis wearing a mask. And excitement, maybe the most underestimated disruptor, floods your mind with optimism and shuts down the part of you that normally asks the hard, necessary questions. Niccolo Machiavelli saw this pattern with relentless clarity. He watched people with every advantage, every resource, every open path to success throw everything away in one emotional moment. Leaders declaring war out of wounded pride, advisors revealing secrets in flashes of anger, capable individuals abandoning winning positions because they couldn't tolerate the emotional discomfort of waiting. Over and over, he saw people make permanent decisions from temporary emotional states. He understood that a strategic mind is not an emotionless mind. It is a disciplined one, a mind that can feel everything yet still choose to pause before acting. That single word, pause, matters more than almost anything else here. Pausing before responding, before reacting, before deciding is one of the most powerful and trainable skills you will ever develop. The pause creates space, and in that space, something shifts. Your emotion remains, but it stops driving. Your judgment finally has room to step in. When the moment is heated, step back, literally if you must. Give it time. 60 minutes of distance from a charged emotional state can transform your perspective. A full day can make the situation look completely different. Ask yourself, if I weren't angry, would I still choose this? If I weren't afraid, would I still retreat? If the excitement faded, would I still say yes without more questions? If your answer shifts even slightly, that shift is your signal. The emotion was making the call, not you. The people who build real, lasting results in their careers, their relationships, their development, they're not always the smartest or the most talented. They are the most controlled. Not cold, not shut down, controlled. They feel everything but act from strategy. Emotions give you information, but they never deserve the final vote. That vote belongs to your judgment, and your judgment only works when you give it room to breathe. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you're trying to go. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I pause, then decide. Number 5, avoid comfortable illusions. The most dangerous place in your life right now isn't the hard place. It's the comfortable one. When life gets hard, you respond, you adapt, you innovate. Difficulty forces movement. But the comfortable place? That place keeps you exactly where you are for months, for years, sometimes for decades, while quietly draining something essential from you. Your edge, your hunger, your belief that more is still possible. And the cruelest part? You don't feel it happening. There's no alarm, no warning, just a gradual settling until one day you wake up and realize the fire you had years ago has become dim and small. Machiavelli wrote about this with unnerving clarity. He believed the greatest threat to lasting power was not the enemy you could see. It was the illusion of security that made people stop doing the very things that built their strength. Comfort made people complacent. Complacency made them soft. And softness in a world that never stops moving is simply a slower version of falling behind. This pattern shows up everywhere. The job that pays well but stopped challenging you long ago. The relationship that isn't painful but isn't growing. The city you stayed in, not because it helps your future, but because leaving requires effort. The creative project you keep postponing because your current situation is good enough. Comfort whispers, it's not that bad. You could do worse. At least you know what to expect. But that voice is often the most expensive voice you'll ever obey. Machiavelli insisted, real security comes not from comfort, but from strength, from continuous development, from ensuring your capabilities exceed what your current situation demands. Because the moment you stop growing, you begin losing ground, even if everything around you looks perfectly stable. Here's a question worth sitting with honestly, even if it stings a little. Is your current situation making you stronger or making you softer? Is the path you're on right now actually building something meaningful, something real? Or is it simply protecting you from discomfort while quietly draining your potential? And be brutally honest with yourself. If you stepped away from your current situation tomorrow, whether it's a job, a relationship, a city, or even a mindset, would you look back in 5 years and feel like that time built you? Or would you realize you simply waited? These questions feel uncomfortable for a reason, and that discomfort is priceless because growth always requires friction. The right kind of challenge isn't a sign that something is broken. It's a sign something alive is happening, something that will eventually compound into genuine capability and real progress. If a situation, an environment, a relationship, or even a belief system has stopped your growth, it is the wrong path. Period. It doesn't matter how familiar it feels, how much easier it is to stay, or how soothing that comfortable inner voice sounds when it whispers, "You're fine, don't worry." Comfort that costs you your future is not safety. It is a slow, quiet kind of loss. And the ability to see that before it steals years from you, that awareness is everything. Number 6, think in consequences, not moments. Every decision has two parts, the moment and the consequence. But most people live entirely inside the moment. They choose based on what feels good right now, what reduces today's tension, what satisfies the immediate craving or silences the discomfort bubbling in the present. And the consequence, it either never enters their awareness or appears only as a blurry idea they'll deal with later. But here's the truth nobody wants to face. The consequence always arrives. This difference, moment thinkers versus consequence thinkers, creates one of the biggest divides between people who build something real and people who stay trapped in repeating cycles. It's not always about talent or opportunity. It's often about time horizon. The person who builds a life they're proud of is the person who can look at a choice today and trace its cost or reward 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, and then choose based on that truth, not on what feels emotionally satisfying in the moment. Niccolo Machiavelli hammered this pattern over and over. He watched powerful people make decisions that looked brilliant immediately, but became catastrophes over time. Quick alliances that led to long-term instability, short-term victories that created long-term enemies. He saw how short-term thinking was one of the most reliable predictors of eventual failure, no matter how smart or resourceful a person seemed. The spending that feels relieving today becomes years of pressure. The conversation avoided today becomes a broken relationship tomorrow. The rest you choose when effort was needed, fine occasionally, but devastating when it becomes your default. None of these choices feel disastrous in the moment. That's exactly what makes them dangerous. They compound quietly. Strategic thinking means training your mind to extend its view. Not obsessively, you still have to live your life, but deliberately, especially before major decisions. Before anything significant, you must trace the full range of consequences. And here's a practice Machiavelli understood centuries before modern strategists. Don't start by imagining the best case. Start by imagining the worst realistic case. If this goes wrong, truly wrong, what does that look like? Can you survive it? Rebuild from it? Is the downside worth the upside? Most impulsive decisions collapse under that single question. Power belongs to people who prepare for consequences before they arrive, not those who react after the damage is done. Train yourself to think in time. Think past the moment, past the week, past the temporary relief or excitement. Ask yourself, what is the real cost of this choice? What does my life look like a year from now if I decide this today? That question, asked honestly, will protect you from more regret than almost anything else. Number 7, correct your path early and without ego. This is where most people fail. Not because it's hard to understand, but because pride gets in the way. Pride is why people stay in the wrong careers for years, sometimes decades, even after part of them knows it isn't right. Pride is why they cling to failing strategies long after the evidence proves they aren't working. Changing course feels like admitting to the world, I was wrong. And for many, that humiliation feels worse than quietly failing. But that isn't strength. That's ego pretending to be commitment. And ego is one of the most silent destroyers of potential. Machiavelli saw it constantly. The people who endured weren't the ones who never made mistakes. They were the ones who recognized their mistakes early and corrected them without hesitation, without defending bad choices just to protect their image. He valued results, real, measurable results, not appearances. And here's the truth we're sitting with. If you are on the wrong path, the cost of staying does not stay the same. It compounds. Every week you spend moving in the wrong direction isn't just a week gone. It's a week dragging you farther from where you need to be. Every month you cling to an approach that clearly isn't producing results becomes another month of your time, your energy, your resources, your irreplaceable opportunities all drifting the wrong way. And the truth hits hard. The earlier you correct, the less it ultimately costs you. Changing course is not weakness. Let me be absolutely direct about that. In fact, changing course might be one of the clearest signs of real strategic intelligence you will ever show. It requires far more honest courage to say, this is not working and I need to adjust, than to keep going simply because you're afraid of what the adjustment says about you. It requires more real discipline to correct early than to stay comfortable in a direction you already know is wrong. Because at least the wrong direction feels familiar, right? Here's the analogy that makes this painfully undeniable. A pilot who realizes they're off course by 2 degrees and corrects immediately makes a tiny, effortless adjustment and still arrives exactly on time. But a pilot who waits 3 hours to correct that same 2-degree error? Now they must make a massive, disruptive course change and may have already missed the destination entirely. 2 degrees off course caught early is nothing. 2 degrees off course sustained for years becomes a completely different life, one you never intended to build. Let the ego go. Evaluate your current path with honesty, not with the amount of investment you've already poured into it as your justification. The time and energy you've spent are not reasons to continue in a direction that isn't right. They are simply gone. What matters now is what you can still protect, the road ahead. Correct without drama. Correct without punishing yourself. Correct because you value your future more than the illusion of having always known exactly what you were doing. Results over ego. That is the standard. That has always been the standard. And the sooner you adjust, the less you lose. Most people discover they've been walking the wrong path only when it's already late. Late enough that years are gone, late enough that the hunger, the fire, the certainty that more is possible has faded into something quieter, heavier, something that doesn't believe the way it used to. That is the real cost, not just the lost opportunities, not just the wrong investments of time and trust, but the internal erosion, the fading voice that once pushed you forward now whispering, maybe it's too late. And here's the heartbreaking truth. This happens to capable people, smart people, hard-working people, people who wanted something real. They simply never had a framework for evaluating their direction. They trusted too quickly. They let emotions make decisions strategy should have made. They clung to comfort when they desperately needed challenge. They chased approval when they needed conviction. They thought in moments when they needed to think in years. And pride kept them walking down the wrong road long after some part of them already knew it was wrong. These aren't fatal flaws, they're patterns. And patterns can be recognized. And once recognized, they can be changed. But only if you see them. Seeing clearly is always the first step. If this message is finding you right now in this specific moment, take that seriously. Sometimes the right information arrives exactly when it needs to, not after the damage is done, not years from now when regret has already piled up. but now before. So pause, not as an idea, actually pause. Step back from your life and look at your most important current decisions with honesty. The path you're on professionally, the relationships you're investing in, the patterns you keep repeating, the direction you are truly moving versus the direction you intended to move. Ask the hard questions. Ask who benefits from your current path. Ask what the long-term consequences of your major choices will really be. Ask whether the people closest to you have earned that proximity through consistent behavior. Ask whether you act from strategy or from fear, approval, pride, or comfort. Ask whether the situation that feels safe is actually building you or silently softening you. If you answer honestly, you will know. You will know whether you're on the right path or whether a correction must happen. And right now, before this message ends, if anything shifted the way you see your situation, hit that like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps this reach someone who may desperately need it. Share it with someone at a crossroads, someone making a big choice, someone stuck in a loop they can't name. And if you want to keep building this strategic clarity, this awareness that most people only learn through painful years, subscribe right now. Don't wait for the pain when you can have the awareness. The right path was never going to appear by luck. It was never about luck. It is chosen through strategy, observation, honest self-evaluation, and the discipline to act even when ego begs you to stay still. Every correction you make today is something your future self will not have to pay for. Every hard question you ask now is a regret that never forms. Every moment of awareness you build becomes a shield around the future you're creating. Because the greatest danger in life was never failure. It was walking the wrong path every single day and calling it normal. Getting comfortable in it, building your identity around it, and waking up years later wondering how you got there. You know better now. You have the framework. You have the awareness. You have the corrections. Use them. Choose deliberately. Protect your future. The path is still in front of you, and the direction you move from this moment is entirely yours to decide. Drop this final affirmation in the comments. My path, my choice.